Now, if you're in the market for a 3D printer, but you also would like to get into laser engraving, and let's face it, if you're into laser engraving and 3D printing, you're not that far away from considering a CNC machine. Let's face it, that all three machines are going to take up a lot of space. Well, today we're going to talk about the Snapmaker Artesian, and this is a device that I would consider the multi-tool for creators that basically can serve as a 3D printer, and more importantly, it does it extremely well. It could also serve as your laser engraver, and it too does that really well. And then it has CNC capabilities, and guess what? It does that well too. It's a multi-purpose device for creators. At least that's how I see it. So in today's video, we're going to cover the first of the three functions, followed by other functions in the subsequent videos. Today we're going to talk about the 3D printing capabilities. Now, from a 3D printing capability, it has a 300C dual extrusion, I would say, nozzle. And that's really important to know because the 300C, that high temperature means that you're going to be able to print a variety of materials, as you'll see very shortly. This machine is industrial grade. It has steel guardrails and the super quiet, what I would consider linear modules. Those are the components that go up and down and go forward and back. And I've owned several Snapmakers, and this is by far the quietest Snapmaker that I have ever experienced. The machining, the tooling, this machine is premium. Every single aspect of it feels industrial grade, but it also has a real nice aesthetic. For those of you who may not have a dedicated room that you can have, maybe you have a craft room where you may have maybe your Cricut machine or you have some other things, this is going to fit well because of the overall aesthetic. Now, as a 3D printer, it has a massive, massive build plate. 400 by 400 by 400 millimeters. That means that if you want to print large objects like cosplay, helmet, very functional things, you have a massive build plate that you can use to do this. They also were very considerate in the design and included a double-sided PEI glass combination. So on one side of the actual sheet, it's smooth glass and it gives you very glossy finishes. On the other side, it has the PEI sheet that gives you kind of like that, almost like if it was sandpaper kind of finish on the bottom. It's not abrasive in any way, but it's almost like that. It makes things stick. It's great for materials that require high heat and that you want to have some good adhesion on as well. So you're going to be able to have two different finishes on this printer. It has a bed temperature of anywhere from 80 to 110 C. And we say 80 to 110 C because it's dual zone. It literally, very efficient because it looks at two parts of the bed and it determines what you would want to heat. And depending on what you want to heat, the amount of temperature that you'll need is going to be far less. So that's going to be a super efficient way. The one thing I really love about this machine also is that going from 3D printing to, let's say, laser engraving, it's incredibly fast. It's literally a minute. You have these little control that you just pull the button and then you're able to switch from 3D printing to CNC to laser engraving in a snap. In this case, still focusing on the 3D printing, it also then has good speeds. We're talking about 40 as the slowest setting, all the way up to 200 millimeters per second. So this is going to give you a lot of flexibility when it comes to those large prints. Now, the printing itself, you can actually do it via Wi-Fi or, to print and monitor, or you can walk up to it with the USB. So that's pretty nice as well. Now, from a material perspective, this is where you have the ultimate in flexibility. Now, the materials cover a wide variety of materials, both standard and very common, and those that are more industrial grade. This is going to be able to do PLA, which is the most common print material used. ABS, ASA, PETG. If you'd like to have something that is like your cell phone cases, they're kind of like that squishy, rubbery material, TPU, you'll be able to do it as well. It also supports breakaway PLA. It supports PVA, HIPS, nylon. It also does carbon fiber, reinforced nylon, and glass fiber reinforced nylon as well. Now, all of this is possible because of the way the heads work and the temperature rating for it. Now, if there is a specific material type that you'd like to print, make sure that you have the right head. And if you do need additional heads, the cool thing about this is that it's very easy. Literally, if you could do this, pinch, you can replace the head with a different head. It's that easy. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the printer. We're going to see how it functions. We're going to go through some print samples that came out fantastic. And you'll see why it's an incredibly capable 3D printer. After this video, make sure you come back because we'll have also a video that will include now the laser engraving, and then we'll have one that will have the CNC. So let's go ahead and check it out. Now this printer has the largest print bed that we have in our shop, 400 by 400 by 400. And I just want to give you a sense of how big this is. So if you're into cosplay, this is going to work. If you like to print large prints, bottom line, it's going to work because of the print surface. And it has a lot of options that are going to give you a lot of flexibility when it comes to how you print, not just from a materials perspective, but then also on the print bed. So the print bed, as we discussed in the actual spec review, does have the ability to have heated zones. So if you're just working in some of the smaller areas, you can be more power efficient by just focusing the heat area of what's in the middle, or you could actually have the entire bed. Now keep in mind that this can be flipped over, and it does have a PAI, I would say more of a textured surface on the very bottom, or you could go with the glass finish as you see right here. Now, if you do use the glass finish, it gives you some beautiful, beautiful glassy prints. So let me just show you this right here so you can see how nice that is. Look at that reflection there. Very, very nice finishes on the bottom. And even as we look at this XY cube, let me find the side that was actually on the bed. Here it is right here. Notice, notice how shiny that is, and it's just a finish. Now, the one thing I don't like about it, though, is that for whatever reason, the lines that you have here come through in the actual print itself. So I wish that wasn't the case, that wasn't showing up there, because this would give you a really nice effect when you have any type of prints. And we did print several things, and before we go through all the prints, I just want to show you, we tried the different speeds. So for example, this XY cube that you see right here, and we'll get this in focus, is a fast print. And I wanted to see if there was any difference if you went from fast, from normal modes. And as you can see right here, and we'll get that right there in focus, this is a good cube. Really, really good, right? Well prepared. And then this one right here that I'm going to show up right now is a normal speed cube. And we're going to bring this one also into the focus. And you can see what that looks like right there, right? Really, really good. And we'll put them side by side. And what I found is that you have your normal speed and you have your fast speed, and it's not really perceptible if there's any, and let's get that in focus, it's not really perceptible if there's any degradation. There's maybe some slight differences, but you can see how things look right there. I think they look pretty great. Here's the Z. All right. Probably this one's a little bit better. All right. And then let's look at our Y. Oops. There it goes, the Y. And you can see how that looks. Yeah, this one I think is a little bit better. The slower is obviously a little bit better. Going fast, you're losing something, but not quite much. Now, another thing about the calibration, because this has two print heads, there's a calibration process that you go through, and there's an X and Y calibration. And this was a little bit hard for me to understand at first, and I provided Snapmaker some feedback on this. Basically, what you do is, during the process, once you set everything up and you have your heads equally are going to be leveled, what you do is you run this test pattern. And what you're looking for is to get the actual, this is my primary color, and then my secondary color to appear as close to the middle as possible. You notice that this is the one that I lifted up, because this is the one that I felt that was the closest. So what you're looking for is for that line to be in the middle. And there's going to be some that are going to be too far to the left, too far to the right. So you have to use your, your eyes, I guess, and get the best judgment as to which one do you think is the right one. You're going to do that for your X and for your Y, and then pick the one that you feel the most, and you're going to calibrate that in the system. Now, once you do that, prints like this. So this is a model that they had, which is using 2 filaments. The gray in this case is support material, and this is a pencil holder, right? And if we take a look at the quality here for a second, this is really good quality, right? And this is silk PLA, which, as you guys know, silk is probably one of the less forgiving materials because it shows a lot of the defects. But this did really, really well. Now, the purge tower that we got of it was kind of interesting. And it has these dimples, right, going all the way around it. And then you can see how the gray is in here, and there's some stringing in here, but there was no stringing there. So it did this brim, printed this out as it was going back and forth and switching heads. Not a terrible amount of I would say, support material waste, because this is very light. It's not thick like some of the other printers that I've looked at. Now, one of the things that we've also run on the channel is TPU, and I know that that's something that interests many of you. Here is a TPU print. We've printed a model like this before. We really like this model, and you can see just the treads are really nice. This is like for an RC car, and it's just amazing that, you know, this is something that you can print, a replacement tire at home. And because of the enclosed chamber, it does a decent job when it comes to maintaining temperature. Now keep in mind, it's not a heated chamber like some of the other printers. It's just basically what's coming off of the bed, but it's because it's enclosed, it's maintaining it. But you can see how nice this quality is. Now we went ahead and we printed some more PLA. And here's another PLA silk, right? So this is a really nice skull. And you can see the quality of this is superb. Right, a lot of detail here in the hair. I did a really nice job. We then also did marble material. I wanted to see how it did with the marble. And it also did a really, really nice job with the marble material. Right. We then also did some vase mode work. And this was a material that had kind of like a glitter to it. And you can see what this looks like. This is also something that we printed in the past. I thought that this did really, really nice, given the detail and also the material itself. So really like that. We then did a bust because I wanted to see what something like this would look like. Okay, look at the quality there. Really, really nice. The infill is the only thing, is that I put this as a 10% infill, and it feels heavier than 10%. But it's a solid print, and you can see all the detail that we have there in the suit, going all the way around, right? And then obviously that glassy look that you see on the bottom, right? That's nice. And again, as I highlighted, those lines are the only things that I wish, there you go, you can see them. I only wish that those lines that are here on the bed wouldn't show up. Now, the last thing that we printed was some carbon fiber. We wanted to print some material and see what that would look like, especially because of the temperature of the nozzle. And it did really well, right? So this is a steam deck docking station, and look how clean that is. Really, really, really clean. All right, so really happy the way this turned out. So all in all, as a printer, I would say first of all, Snapmaker makes some solid equipment. This thing is super solid, high quality material everywhere. You know, the linear rails, and we haven't spoken about the print head yet because I want to get close to that in a second. But overall, this is a super solid printer. And it's delivering the quality. And what I love is the fact that you have those two print heads that all you have two different filament types in. And especially if you want to create a support material, dissolvable material, if you want to print some more abrasive materials, they also have different, I would say, nozzles that you can use if you want to have, you know, some very abrasive materials that require more heat. Now, switching the bed is really simple. Now, there's a couple levers that you can work with. First of all, this one right here is going to allow you to switch the bed if you want to go from printing to CNC to laser engraving. So you're going to leave that one as is. But here on the side, all you're going to do is pull this out like this, and then once you do this, you're able to grab the bed, right, just like this. And here you have it. Now, if you want to flip it over to use this type of material, so this is going to give you that kind of more abrasive material. This is going to be, again, that PEI sheet. You'll be able to use a PEI sheet. Or, again, you can just stick with this one right here. To put it back, all you do is put it into place just like that, slide it in. There's some clips right here on the sides that you just go with. I just make sure that it's aligned, snap it into place, and you're set to go. Now, in my experience, I haven't had to level as I flip things over, which I think is really nice. So far, I've had a lot of luck with this. So you can go from one finish on the bottom, flip it over, continue to print, and then not have to do any kind of leveling. Now, the print head is also pretty unique here. We're going to go ahead and open this up for a second so you can see it. The print head, each one of these nozzles gets leveled. And you notice how this one is lower than this one? And that was the one that I was using last. What you can do is simply by pinching these two together, this comes out. You put it back in. So if you would like to have a nozzle that has, I would say designed for high temperature, all you have to do is order them on Snapmaker, and then you would be able to just switch these out. But I think it's pretty incredible that they have both of these here very well executed. The fact that they basically adjust, as they're being used, and then the fact that it's so easy to replace it. So this comes out super easy, and then each one of these comes out super easy. So as soon as you turn on the heat, you're basically, and you choose your filament that you're going to print, the appropriate nozzle comes down based on which filament you've chosen, and then it works. Now, if you're switching filament back and forth, it's going to basically alternate, and you'll see this thing moving as it stops. But the nice thing about it is it doesn't go back to the home position or to the very top. It just switches it, does the purge tower that it needs, and it keeps on going. Now the display for the Snapmaker typically should be on the side. My table isn't large enough, so I actually put it in the back here. But I just wanted to show you, this was one of the recent prints that I did on a test on a Benchy. Did fantastic quality. We're going to do another print just in a couple seconds. But no overhang issues, and we did 3 speeds. The neat thing about this is that you get a visual representation of the item that you've printed, the amount of time that it took, and again, I was going for different details and also different speeds, and then what you can do is you can go on to the next step. But let me show you everything that you're going to find here in the interface, because very colorful. It's the richest interface that I've seen on a printer, and I actually would say everyone who is in the space of making printers should really take note on how well designed these screens are. Very informative, very easy to use, and I love how touch, I would say, sensitive the screen is as you're navigating through the screens. Now the first thing we'll do is we'll go into the actual control area. So we can show you some of the 3D printing options. Now, depending on the head that you have, the interface is going to adjust itself to the task at hand. In this case, because I'm 3D printing, you notice I'll go into control, I can move the head. These are standard features that you would find, but notice how nicely laid out this is. If I go into the filament area, I can actually preheat things. So if I want to heat this up, I just hit heat, right? And then it's going to start to heat up. And I'm going to stay quiet for a second for you to listen. Now the door is open, but this is how much noise is coming through, because as it's heating up, you'll probably hear some fans and some things that are going to come up to just make sure that it hits the right temperature, but also watch how fast this thing is heating up. So this is pretty cool. We're going to stay on the screen for a second so you can see the duration of the warm cycle. But in addition to heating this up, and you can see that we can go up to 300°C, this is where you would also do the load and unload of your filament, and then you could do the heating for each nozzle. You can also then adjust the bed, and we're going to look at the bed in a second, and then you can actually see the enclosure. But notice how fast this thing is warming up. I think it's doing really well, and it's going to hit 200°C very fast. Now, we'll go ahead to the bed itself. Now, the bed, you have the whole bed or you have the inner zone, right? The inner zone is going to save power, and it's just going to heat up the things that you want to heat up. So we're going to go ahead and hit heat that, and it's also going to heat up. And I found that the bed itself also does a real nice job of heating up. Watch how fast this thing is going. So the startup cycle to print, the longest part of a startup cycle is going to be warming up the print head and then also the bed, and I think it does a really good job of that. You can actually see the enclosure here. You can turn on the exhaust if you'd like to, turn on the LED strips, which we already have on. Now every job that you basically either download wirelessly or that you put through this, you have the ability to store it. Now I've deleted a lot of things and I've left things on just for this illustration, but I just want to show you what you could do is you can always go back, you can look at the USB, which is where I have a lot of things that you just saw, but you can go here, choose the item that you'd like to print, right? And these are all the details. Notice how much stuff is here, right? And it's telling you things about the tool head, if you want to warm everything or just the inner zone. So I'm going to change that so there's some configuration options, and then you can just hit print, right? So it wants to make sure that everything is clear, and now it's going to go ahead and print. So you'll notice all these details. The nozzle temperature, it's giving you also the bed temperature, the benchy, how much time is remaining, and then you could go ahead and you can make some adjustments if you'd like to. Adjust the flow rate, work speed, move your Z offset, so that's something that you can adjust if you'd like to. But let's go ahead and see how this starts. Now as things are heating up, there's a couple things going on. There is a fan that's going, but it's not loud, especially with the enclosure closed. So I can hear it now because the door is actually open, but the actual fan is on as the nozzle is heating. The bed is also heating up, but it's not heating up in this area. It's only heating up here. So I can literally, as I move my finger, this is cool, cool, cool. And then as I get to this area here, this is where I actually feel the warmth. Now, if I had the door closed, That would help speed up things slightly. But again, just wanted to give you kind of an overall experience of how loud this is. And this is a significant departure from the first generation, second generation. I had a couple Snapmakers. This is the quietest that I've had, both for printing, even having it powered. This thing is super silent. Now what you'll start noticing is you'll notice the print head start moving as it's getting everything ready, and it's starting to come down. And notice how fast it goes. This is great. All right, it's going to put in the purge line, that first line for us. All right. And it's going to start to print. Now overall, the quality that I've seen coming out of the Snapmaker is great. So while this is a almost like a Swiss Army knife of devices, because it does CNC, it does laser, and it does 3D printing, sometimes you run into devices that don't really do a good job when it comes to, you know, those other functions. I have to say that in my experience so far, this is done extremely well. So this is a great 3D printer. It's not going to be as fast as some of the other printers on the market, because this is not to be one of those super fast printers, but the quality of the prints that have been coming out of this have been fantastic in my opinion, and it makes it a great 3D printer. The fact that it has that dual material and it's also able to get up to 300C. The size of the bed makes it also a great solution for a hobbyist that is looking to be able to create large prints and also functional prints. So this is really done really well when it comes to accuracy as well. But you could see the overall print experience, and I'm going to just stay quiet for a second so that you can get the actual noise floor. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the door, and then I'm going to keep the recording going so you can hear how quiet this is. You see what I'm talking about? That's pretty quiet. And you'll also notice how that other print head that's right there, it went up while the other one's printing. Let's go ahead and close the door. All right, so the door's closed now. I'm going to stay quiet so you can hear how much is being heard. Guys, that is super quiet. That is very quiet compared to some of the things I've seen in the past. Now, this enclosure is great too, because this enclosure also is going to be what is referred to as like laser 1 certified. And let's just pan up here for a second so you can see what I'm talking about. So it's great that this enclosure is available, because you know it's going to help with that laser light that comes through. And you can see that this is important for anyone who is going to be using the laser solution. So really, the Snapmaker Artesian just has so much capabilities. When it comes to 3D printing, I think it's a fantastic option for those of you who are looking to have a multi-purpose device. You may not have the space to have, you know, 3 machines, a CNC, a laser, and then a 3D printer. And this is all of them in one. So guys, that wraps up our review. See you in the next video.